Hey, it's Aaron. I got a pretty good question from Oscar. Oscar wants to know, some years ago, a few companies were developing a vehicle and a plane combined. How far has that technology gone? It's a really good question. Back in the 40s, a flying car was a new idea. Air flight was relatively new, and cars were just becoming really prolific, especially in the US. So the idea of combining the two and having a flying car was uh, an obvious next step. So it didn't happen. We've been told for generations now that we're going to see flying cars in our lifetime, yet we don't. Um, I'm over 40 now, working on really close to 50, and I still do not see any flying cars out on the road. There's several reasons for that. Some of it is that safety is a big concern with these. You're now moving from two-dimensional driving to three-dimensional flight. For most people, that is probably not something they can do just inherently, and you can't just have your older brother or your dad or your mom or somebody teach you how to do it. It's the kind of thing that we have licensing for because there's a lot that can happen and many things that can go wrong. You get a lot of cars flying around, and you're either going to have no air traffic control or very little. It's mostly going to be up to the people flying. So, big safety concerns. Next is just realism. Um, Range drops considerably when you put any vehicle in the air. So if you take a vehicle with a certain profile and you drive it down a road, and then you take that same vehicle with that profile and you fly it through the air, you actually lose range. You use more energy to go. And that's because to fly, you have to have a lift. To drive, you don't. The weight of the vehicle just holds it onto the ground. So the only thing that you lose when you fly is the friction on the ground, right? The tires on the ground. But you gain friction in the wings and the lift that go with that. So that's also a big concern. It would not be terribly efficient, um, especially if this is a vehicle that has to be both on the ground and in the air, because you can't do the aerodynamics of a flying machine on a vehicle that also has to drive around on the ground. Um, you also have to think about things that otherwise wouldn't be a concern. Most vehicles, they create downforce. Their shape causes the air to push them down slightly. If you have a vehicle that is made to lift, then if it drives at a certain speed, it is going to lift. And so you would have to account for that in your design of an aircraft car. And then finally, there's just a lot of regulation and a lot of red tape. So even if you could come up with this, you're talking about at least two different entities in the U.S. you would have to deal with, that being the Department of Transportation and the FAA. So you would have to deal with both of them. You would have to meet crash test regulations on the ground, and then you would have to meet flight safety regulations in the air. It's just a lot to deal with, and it's really not realistic. So, while there have been many experiments, there have been many prototypes. There's even a couple that are theoretically for sale right now. Um, Being able to get a flying car is not within reach of pretty much everybody I know, and probably everybody watching this. So, uh, yeah, your best bet is to become a billionaire and build yourself a rocket. I was going to end there, but I'm supposed to do the wrap up thing too, because that was a really good ending. I mean, you have to admit, that was a great way to stop. But I also got to tell you how to get a hold of me. So if you have questions and you want to ask me those questions, you can hit me up in the comments down below this. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, etc. Make sure that you DM or IM me, or at least tag me so I can see it. Otherwise, I probably won't see your question. Oscar here actually got a hold of me via my website. So if you go to aarononautos.com, you can use the contact form there. So there you go. That's it. Hang around. There'll probably be some more answers, because I got tons of answers. You got questions, I can give you answers. Sometimes they're even right.